Welcome! Today we're painting Snowberry. Okay, I'm starting with a really light peachy color. It's a really diluted version, just to drop in these little berries to start. You can make them little rough circles, and then I'm also leaving a little bit of white space on a few to have a natural highlight. You can also add in a little bit of that light pink to add a touch of rose into some of the berries. I have a Pinterest board linked below in the description, and you can see there I have a few images for snowberries, and you can see that the colors range from a light pale pinkish peach to light greens to an off-white, so we'll try to recreate that in our version. You can keep a paper towel on hand and then rinse your brush and then use it like a sponge and pick up any extra water or paint if you get too much. And then going back to that really light green, I'm dropping in a little touch onto some of these berries. Okay, and then mixing up a little green and brown to get an olive green, I'll put in a few branches. I'm also leaving some white space in between. And then with a lighter green, I'll go in and add a few leaves. You can also refer back to those images in the Pinterest board if you want to see how these leaves actually look. They're a little bit wider and closer to the branch. You can make some a little bit more narrow so they're on a side view, and then tuck a few behind some of the berry clusters. And then you can also use that paper towel method and soak up any extra paint or water with a clean brush. Alright, so if your berries have mostly dried, you can go in and add these tiny little dots that are on the ends of each of these berries. And you can see on the ones that haven't dried as much, that color will spread out a little bit. So if that happens, just use your paper towel and you can just dab up that extra bit of paint. Okay, so now that that first layer has mostly dried, we can go in and add some shadows. So using a little darker shade of that peach rose color, I'm going in and just dropping in a little shadow layer underneath the berries. I'm going in and dropping them first, and then I will rinse my brush and with a damp, clean brush, blend out some of these edges so that they're not so sharp. This blending technique will work as long as your paint is somewhat wet and damp. Once it's dried though, it's a lot harder to clean out that sharp edge. So when you're dropping in your shadows, just keep in mind your light source. You'll find that the shadows are more underneath the berries and in between where they touch each other. Okay, and then going in with a little darker yellow-green, I'm going in and adding a few shadow lines and areas on the berries. And then using that same technique of rinsing your brush and just having a clean, damp brush, I'm going in and softening out some of these edges while that paint is still wet. Alright, so while that dries, I can go in and add some details on the leaves. I'm using a dark green with a bit of brown in it. I'm putting in some of these lines. I'm leaving a little bit of white space in between them too, so it just looks a little bit looser and more natural. Okay, so if your berries have dried, you can go in and add in any more shadows or final touches that you like. Mine dried a bit lighter, so I'm going in with another layer just to give a little bit more color into these shadows. I like to work light to dark, and it's a lot easier to add in color than take it away. So I like to work with these layers and build up my saturation. You can also go in and darken up any of these little spots on the ends of the berries. And then we're done. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had so much fun painting.